It's very different starting from user 0 than starting from user 1 million or 2 million and that type of thing. And so the mindset, the approach, the channels are all very different. And Zach Anisko, who's head of growth at Creative Market, talks about this kind of early stage as the hustle stage, which I think is the perfect term for it, where you have no users, all you have is an idea, and you have to figure out how to get initial people through the door to experience the product so you can learn about it and iterate it and begin to build. And so discovering new channels, figuring out your customer acquisition strategy, and you're basically building a engine while you're kind of barreling down a freeway. You know, you have very limited time, very limited resources, and you have to start to figure out how to make this thing go. So I think it's a very different mindset, a lot of different tactics, and yeah, it's its own beast, its own animal. So I believe growth is a team sport, and that ideas are the fuel for growth. And there's no way one person can come up with all of the ideas. I think you need a deep reservoir of ideas to pull from to experiment. If you're going to have a high tempo experimentation culture, even if you're a small team or a team of one, like you are very early on, you need multiple inputs of ideas. And whether that's from other team members, people that are friendly with the company, your board of advisors, your investors, like I think tapping all of them for ideas is really key to keeping that tempo going. I do think that you have to be careful with how you impact the product roadmap and how you impact the overall company roadmap with your experimentation. But I do think if you kind of work on these kind of smaller batch size projects, and really get the buy-in of the product and the engineering teams, that's really where the magic happens. Because I do think in kind of studying all these high growth companies, the best growth organizations are growth organizations at the core. You know, it's not like marketing is really outstanding. It's that the whole company is bought in on growth being a priority. And so to some extent that will always impact the product roadmap, but growth should be seen as a product priority as well. In the best organizations, it's always seen as a product priority too. There's definitely different strategies and channels that apply at different kind of user sizes, so audience sizes. So kind of the 0 to 500,000, definitely kind of one set of tactics. As you start to scale up beyond that, a different set of tactics. And then, yeah, as you get into the tens of millions and hundreds of millions, it's definitely a completely different set of tactics there, where more kind of traditional stuff takes over. But I think very early on, you have a lot of kind of scrappy tactics, things that aren't necessarily scalable, things that won't get you to kind of, you know, tens of millions of people, but will get you the next 100,000, the next 200,000 people. So yeah, they're kind of short-lived, ephemeral tactics that tend to tap out very quickly, but are very useful in kind of getting that initial ball rolling. There's lots of different tactics that you can try very early on. That's the beauty of being so early on, is you don't know exactly what's going to work, and there really aren't any rules. So you can try everything, and growth is pretty much like anything else. You know, you're going to try 9 or 10 things. Nine are not going to work. You'll find one thing that works, and then you can kind of double down on that. But I've tried everything from things that I probably don't want to say on camera to, you know, co-marketing partnerships with other companies is a great way to kind of leverage existing audiences. For example, that's a really easy, low-cost marketing tactic where you can get distribution from existing audiences. So that's one of my favorite things for very early stages. Find complementary companies around you in your adjacent space that aren't direct competitors, but that have similar audience characteristics in a similar vertical, similar goals, and do co-marketing with them, where you have your 10,000 people and they have their 20,000 people, and you either put together a joint promotion or an email swap or that type of thing. And that can be, you know, a very scrappy, very low cost, easy way to gain your first customers and that type of thing. So that's one of my favorites. I've run lots of promotions. Tons of performance-based paid advertising is also another easy one, especially if you have some early venture money of seed round, that type of thing. Really focusing on performance-based marketing is a great way to get early traction. Other zanier tactics are, you know, trying to create viral videos, putting people out in the street in costumes and handing out flyers. We had an idea for one company to dress an employee up as a hippo and hand out flyers in front of Moscone. So, you can really run the gamut, and that's the beauty of early stage, is you can try anything as long as it doesn't take too long to execute on. So I think of early stage traction really being about small batch sizes for your experiments, right? So don't get too caught up in one tactic or one idea that's going to take weeks to execute on. Try to keep the momentum high and the tempo high in your experimentation to kind of find the channels that are going to be performant and work and get you those initial users. It's hard to know when something isn't going to work, but not everything is growable. And some ideas don't deserve to grow. Some companies, there isn't a big enough market for it, or the product's not the right fit for the market. And so lots of people have talked about product market fit, but really that's about, finding a big enough market with a big enough problem and really nailing that need. So sure, there are lots of ideas where you can bring in the best growth people on the planet, and they can maybe get initial traction, initial growth, but not sustainable long-term growth. So I think you saw that a lot. Some great examples of that are back when Facebook was really open to viral apps. So you have apps like Branchout and Vidi and those types of things, where some of the best growth teams in the world working on those products that went incredibly viral, but fell off a cliff because there's no long-term core product value to it. The viral engine was exceptional, but the product value just wasn't there. And so, I think there's lots of products that either will grow unsustainably or just can't grow because they don't have lasting value to the user. So one of my favorite axioms as a growth person is to do things that don't scale, but build things that do. And what I mean by that is very early on, you don't know what's going to work. So instead of building a product feature that's going to take 3 weeks of dev time or have a lot of technical debt associated with it, or just take a long time to get into the market, that try to figure out a way to do it in an unscalable way where you can execute on it and get some learning around it first before you go on to build out a whole system. And an easy kind of example is, say, you want to build out an affiliate or an influencer program. So one approach would be, hey, we're going to build out an affiliate program. So we're going to go sign a big contract with affiliate software. We're going to, or maybe write our own affiliate tracking module in our product, build out an admin area, build out unique tracking codes and all these types of things. Or you can say, you know what, we're going to set up really simple coupon codes or Bitly short links or whatever it is, and we're going to track it manually in a spreadsheet for a couple of weeks and see if we can even get traction in this channel. And then if we do get traction, then we can turn around and start to get more thoughtful and really build it out. So it's very similar to kind of the MVP concept of the lean startup, but instead of a minimum viable product, you talk about maybe a minimum viable test that you can get out there into the market and run really fast. And then if there is signal, you can double down and make a smarter investment on that tactic or channel or program. Being laser focused on a niche is super critical. And I actually think that people make a mistake of thinking that they're focused on a niche and actually are still really way too broad. So for example, one of the growth studies that one of the companies we researched was New Relic. And everyone thinks that they did an amazing job marketing to developers, which they did. But that's only a part of the story. They actually started with the Ruby on Rails community. They started, developers wasn't the niche. It was Ruby developers, and the advocates in the Rails community. And so they got really, really laser focused on that very specific niche. And so I think when people talk about niches, often they're talking about really big markets. And the best companies get really way down into the weeds on that. So when you get down into these very small communities, you really can take advantage of network effects and kind of the density of those communities to gain some initial traction and some critical mass before you kind of expand on. And so it was very easy for example, New Relic, once they had kind of won in the Rails community, since Rails people are very vocal, very opinionated. You have, David Heinemeier Hansson from 37 Signals and the like, who have huge audiences. They could speak very convincingly about the power of New Relic, and it spread to a larger developer community. That's one of the big learnings, I think, for me, is that when people talk about niches, they're usually way too broad already. Like you almost have to get hyper focused and then say, okay, is this narrow enough? And then go another click, and that's kind of where you want to be at. So you have to walk in, you have to say there's, $100 million market. There's these huge markets, right? Everyone in, half the world is going to use this technology or whatever. But the reality is to get started, you need, just a very tight community of users, because when you focus on a very small set, you can really nail the product market fit for them. You can really solve a real need for them. And then from there, it's about figuring out how your product morphs to kind of be more inclusive for more and more people. One of the most exciting things in growth is when you see something actually working and trying to figure out, like, okay, is this something that we can scale, or is it just a false positive, or is it something else that we can't really scale and grow up? So I think what you're looking for is you're looking for those signals where you have high conversion rates, or things that are performing that are outlying kind of other things. So you might have a Facebook ad campaign or something like that that's doing 10x better than all the other ones. And then you can really hone in on something like that. Or maybe it's 3x, but it kind of is an outlier. And then you can start to think about, okay, how can we scale this up? Some of the things that we do, just to kind of continue the Facebook ad example, is we'll set up a landing page where we're just capturing email addresses, just as a easy test to see if we can get conversion off of that channel. But that's not really creating active users or really building your user base. But you don't want to invest in kind of wiring up landing pages and the whole account creation and really impacting product to making that happen. But once you get a performant campaign or something that's really outperforming itself, then you can say, hey, this might be a channel, like let's invest some resources to, instead of collect emails, let's make it, create accounts and that type of thing. So you can look for those signals and then make investments based on that. One of my favorite sayings in growth, I think Brian Balfour says it, but it's, double down on what's working. Make a bunch of small bets where you can to try to learn a bunch of things, and then when you see something with some signal, double down on that and put the investment in to see if you can scale it up. When we capture early email addresses from people where we're testing out campaigns with smoke test landing pages or that type of thing, we'll always try to put a conversion email loop on the back of that. So if we get an email address, we'll send a series of drip emails to try to convert them to create their account, complete their account. And then once we have that channel working, we'll switch from email capture to account creation.